So I says to the Vulcan, listen, mate, if you didn't want me to park here, then you should... Oh, fuck, here we go.
Is that... Oh, no, it's a string quartet, isn't it? Why is no one in a punk... Why is no one in a punk band? That's what I want to know. Nobody raps. There's no hip-hop. There's never any live hip-hop on this ship. It's always... can we go...
Which is weird, because... Have you ever heard Riker drop some ill rhymes? He's very good at it.
You say he's good. Let's just put it this way: he doesn't do the radio edit. Okay, he's dropping certain words that man. Look, just because you can play the trumpet and you like jazz doesn't mean you're one of them. Okay, you can't use that language. Podcasts. A Frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast Captain Slug. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new episodes, to seek out new jokes and new references, to split infinitives that no one has split before. Captain Slog, Stardate 49. These are the continued voyages of me, Eddie Edwards, and my colleague Mr. Mark Bench as we trek our way through all of Star Trek The Next Generation. Mark, how you been?
Yeah, great. What's been happening? You really put me on the spot. How am I? Fine. How are you?
Okay. I spent most of the day thinking that Vince McMahon was selling WWE to Saudi Arabia, meaning that I was no longer going to be able to enjoy the Royal Rumble this year. And then found out that is apparently not happening. So now that I can enjoy the Royal Rumble with only worrying that I'm contributing to the industry and wealth of a very horrible man, but at least who hasn't beheaded anyone. So...
Do you think the Saudi royal family... Do you think the reason that you got mixed up is the Saudi royal family... what they call the Royal Rumble is just the earthquakes that come about because of the fracking that's directly responsible for them? Do you know what I mean? There was something there, right? What you got to do, right? I feel like I gave you enough words with spaces in between an inflection there to cut that into something... legible.
There's a joke there, and much like the Saudis, I can mine for the gold, and then refine that from the ore.
Royal, that's the easy bit, right? The Saudi royal family, right? We can all make that connection. The problem is the Rumble. Now, my brain had to start... Listen, if you're listening to this and you're not someone who regularly does comedy or writes jokes or whatever, congratulations on seeing beyond the veil, right? This is how the sausage is made. The Rumble, that was the real problem. That was when the wheels really had to start turning. Because do they frack in Saudi Arabia? I think they're pretty on the ball with their oil. Like, if anything, they are doing oil extraction correctly. So on the one hand, well done to the Saudis, right? On the other hand, they did 9/11. So, and also we really shouldn't be using oil. But I think if you were to take a poll of your standard textbook people on the street, Americans and Brits, and say which one do you think is worse, using oil or 9/11, chances are they're going to say 9/11. Now, in 50 years, that might switch.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the Rumble. So where would the Rumble come from? Because you're in the desert, so I don't know if you get a lot of earthquakes in the desert.
Camel racing? They do camel racing.
Yeah, but
that's got... yeah.
It's kind of a little bit racist, isn't it? Holy shit, man. So we were watching an episode of Bullseye the other day, because...
I love how you got there from it. That's a bit racist. Hold a minute. I just remembered something Jim Bowen said.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even Jim Bowen. It was Jim Bowen's pal, the kind of the announcer guy, right? And you know at the start, Jim Bowen comes out and he does his part. For anyone who has never seen Bullseye, I imagine we've explained Bullseye on this podcast before. Surely you and I have at some point talked about Bullseye.
If we haven't, it's a darts-based quiz show. It's that simple.
But very crucially, from the early 1980s.
Yeah, the early 1980s through to the late 1980s. And if you need it explained further, there's no better explanation than Peter Kay's "What is Bullseye" routine. Might be the finest dissection of Bullseye ever.
I don't know if he got into this, but when you go on Bullseye, if you are a participant, you win the money that you. It's not like in Jeopardy, whatever, where you just get nothing. Maybe that isn't how Jeopardy works. I don't know. Jeopardy, frankly, is not as exciting as Bullseye, but. If you're a participant, you get the money that you earn, and you also get like a kind of doll of like the mascot who is a bully. But you also get a tankard, like a Bullseye tankard. Yeah. Unless you are a woman, in which case instead of a pint-sized tankard, you get a goblet enough to hold one sherry, like because that's what women drank in the 80s.
Not darts playing women though. That's the thing. Not
no,
darts
very few darts playing women. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, we were watching Bullseye, right? So, and his little pal came out and he said, "Jim, I just wanted to tell you about this time on my holiday this summer." And Jim's like, "Oh, where did you go?" And he says, "Oh, I went to Kenya." And he's like, "Oh," and already Laura and I are fucking biting our hands like, "Where's this going?" Because this can't be going somewhere good. And he said, like, I got footage of the local darts team, and then it cuts to a bunch of Zulu warriors with their spears running towards the camera, and like throwing them, just, and we're like, oh, where do you go with this? Because I don't want to get controversial on this, but I kind of like my racist, is this a bit racist? Sense was like going off. But then I was like, if I had to explain this to my uncle, would he just be like, no, it's fine, you could do that these days? Like, nah, you're yeah. Difficult, isn't it?
Because spear chucker is a racial slur, but that is literally a man chucking a spear. So that's I don't know.
And then it's like, is it like belittling something sacred to their culture? Not really.
If it's on TV, here's my view. If it's on TV now, so if you saw that on Challenge, I know that on Challenge they do cut out a lot of the racism, because I was watching an episode of Big Break, and Jim Davidson was introducing the various people, and
every episode of Big Break must be 3.5 minutes long if they have to cut out the racism.
There's you got the two contestants, and each one gets a snooker player in Big Break. So he goes like, introduces the contestant, has a little bit of banter with them, that's fine. Introduces the snooker player, has a little bit of banter with them, that's fine. Introduces the next contestant, has a bit of banter with them. Introduces the next snooker player, who is Asian, and it immediately cuts to 5 minutes later in the show.
I mean, for all you know, he just refused to speak to them any further than he necessarily had to.
No, yeah, but I think there's the fact that he very publicly did that. He said, and I'm not going to speak to you because you're the wrong colour. Snooker is a game about colours, and that colour specifically is white, my friend. Jim Davidson. White ball pushing all the other colours around.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why Jim Davidson likes it so
much. So yeah, anyway, I'll let him off the hook. If you do want to read about something racist that Jim Bowen done, I'm not gonna say it on this podcast.
And who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Yeah, but go and check out why he got fired off BBC Radio. It's intense.
Right. I don't know this story, but now I need to look it up and listen to the recording, because I'm guessing he just dropped the N-word. On BBC Radio 2.
I'm not going to spoil it. He drops a version of the N-word, like a variant of it.
Like the Omicron variant of the N-word.
Yeah, like
more contagious.
Like the British kind of cheeky chappy version of the N-word.
Oh, I know the one you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then tries to claim, was he from? He's not Birmingham. He's from Yorkshire or whatever. He says, when I was growing up in Yorkshire, that was just slang for a lazy person.
It's like, well, that's not better.
Do you ever wonder why? Do you ever wonder where that connection is? Like, do you know how to do that? Like a connect the dot, or does someone just show you like a connect the dot puzzle and you're like, that's a fun combination of dots?
Anyway, Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
O'Brien watch.
O'Brien could play the cello.
O'Brien can play the cello better than he can get any fucking lines this episode. Did you notice that he's in this episode and says nothing?
He's
in 4 scenes.
He's not only says nothing, he's also very clearly about to say something on like 2 separate occasions and then just gets stopped. But such is the life of a featured extra, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, can you tune up this cello? Can you play the cello? I can look like I can play the cello, says Cole Meany.
I don't know, man. Maybe he can.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's like a Wednesday Addams scenario, and we're going to find out that like he can. He's a very accomplished cellist.
When Laura and I watched the episode and it cut over to O'Brien on the cello, she was like, "Oh, O'Brien on the cello, obviously." And she said that in such a tone that I was like, right, that's got to be playing into some sort of Irish stereotype, and I have no idea whether it's a positive or a negative one. So I'm going to say nothing.
Yeah, I would have figured the Irish stereotype would have had him on the fiddle.
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't you? But you've got to have Data do the old violence.
So this plays into something that I want to discuss with you. There better be more than one fucking bar on the Enterprise.
That
right?
wasn't 10 forward. That definitely wasn't 10 forward.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is like, I like going and seeing live music. That's fine, but I don't think there's anything worse than being in a pub and having live music thrust upon you when you didn't specifically want to see it.
That's basically. Have you ever been to Dublin? That's basically what Dublin is.
Yeah, but if I go to Dublin, I expect that in a pub.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be trying to have the conversation with somebody about the darts, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly a fucking Vivaldi kick in. It's like, at least I want to be able to pick the genre, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind if there's live music in every bar, but like, why is nobody in Starfleet? Everybody in Starfleet plays a classical instrument. Nobody's in a fucking garage band. Like, we just do Nirvana and Pearl Jam covers.
And it's bizarre because they do point out, and I think it's in Star Trek Beyond when they play the Beastie Boys. Either Scotty or Bones refers to it as, and I quote, classical music.
Yeah, which it works as a joke, but it does. Classical is a specific genre.
Yeah.
Just because it's older, it wouldn't be classical. They could have just said, "Oh, it's an oldie but a goodie," or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, again, as semi-professional joke writers, they did the right thing.
They did. Yeah.
But yeah, because I guess it's that thing of pop culture, isn't it? Where like people think like 80s movies were better than the movies that we get now, or the 80s music was better than the music that we get now, and it's like, well, it isn't. It's just that we are so far removed from that period that the only stuff that we get to see is the stuff that really worked. But 200 years in the future, man, they fucking Right on Time or Ride on Time by Black Box. Like, they are going to be holding that up with like the same reverence as like a Monet painting. He said, realizing that he couldn't think of a single song. So he likened Ride on Time by Black Box to a Monet painting. A Van Gogh mashup.
Yeah. I laugh when people go like, "Oh, music was better in the '90s," and it's like, "Oh yeah, back when Peter Andre was at number one." What the fuck are you talking about? The Smurfs had a number one album.
Yeah, I think the Smurfs had more than one number one album.
I know that the Teletubbies had 2 number one singles.
I think I owned a Smurfs album.
Yeah,
and I think I owned the second one. And I remember being distinctly disappointed in that. Because even as a child... Right, so if you're listening to this and you're like a Gen Zer, right? If you grew up in the 2000s, by the time that pop culture had become overwhelmingly the main culture, you probably don't remember anything really about back in the day when a sequel to something was basically always worse. Men in Black 2, straight to video, any Disney sequel. Weirdly, it didn't happen often in video games because video games as a medium, like the way that they work is they always progress. You always get better at making them, and consoles get better. So generally, video games tend to get better with sequels. But movies and albums, it was always the original one that was better. And I remember being very fucking disappointed that I had whatever Smurfs 2 Die Hard or whatever it was called.
No, Smurfs 2, The Secret of the Ooze. I believe.
Yeah. And do you know what? Also, I don't know if this still flies, but something else just came to my mind. Sorry, James. We will get back to Star Trek in a minute. Was variant versions of action figures that didn't make any sense, that weren't as good as the original. Like, the Ninja Turtles were the kind of progenitor of this. Like, the Ninja Turtles, your first series, you buy Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael, and it's just they're the standard naked except for the belt and the bandana, sexy. Weapons, Splinter's at least got a house coat on because he's the Hugh Hefner of the Ninja Turtles. But then you would get variants that were like.
I just love the idea. I've got the idea now that just inside the pockets of Splinter's thing, Splinter would have been so much better if he'd been smoking cigars. I'm just going to say it.
I think the Michael Bay one kind of wanted them to do that because in the Michael Bay one, Splinter's origin has nothing to do with Japan. He just decided that he was going to talk and dress like that and be voiced by Tony Shalhoub. But the problem is, what you would end up with is like the next variant, or like 5 variants down the line, because they had to keep making toys, but they couldn't just re-release the same ones over and over again like they do now. It would be like, so my 4 Ninja Turtles that I had were your standard Leonardo, Donatello, and Raphael, right? And then Michelangelo just had basketball gear on.
I mean, to be fair, I could totally see a scenario in which Mikey is the only one in basketball gear. I could see how that could happen.
Yeah,
well, seems like, but that's in character for Michelangelo.
Yeah, I kind of wish that my parents had gotten me like all of the normal ones except for Raphael, and then got me like Cowboy Raphael, because I feel like that the absurdity of that would bring quite a lot of joy to me.
I love the fact that you can tell a lot about somebody who their favourite turtle is. Like, obviously, if you like Donatello, you're more of an intellectual, maybe a bit of a geek sort of person. If you like Raphael, you're more of a loner, a bit more of a tough guy, a bit more grizzled. Michelangelo, more fun, a bit more of a party animal. And if you like Leonardo, your favourite colour is blue.
I don't know, man. He's the leader. He's a good.
Yeah, nobody likes the leader.
He's a good at 2 shoes. He's not even like the type of leader who is the glue that holds the turtles together, because Raphael is constantly trying to fucking break off.
Yeah. No, right. Okay. Liking Leonardo the best is like having Captain America be your favourite Avenger when the first Avengers movie came out.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair,
it's acceptable for Captain America to be your favourite Avenger by the end of the Infinity Saga.
Yeah.
Right. But it is not acceptable. And like by the time that Avengers 1 comes out, your favourite Avenger should be Iron Man, might be Thor, and at a push, weirdly, maybe Hawkeye if you're just weird.
I was a Hawkeye guy, because I had a lot of respect for Hawkeye, but Hawkeye's good. His shtick is that he's good at bow and arrow, and he's in the Avengers, and then Joss Whedon put that, like, almost that word for word in Avengers 2, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't work if you say it out loud, Joss. You fucking idiot. Stop sexually harassing people, allegedly.
That's what I liked about the Hawkeye series, is that the fact that there's an obsessed fangirl who spent her entire life trying to emulate Hawkeye doesn't make sense, because when you look at the Avengers, the only one that you could conceivably actually be is Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Like, unless everything else relies on, like, you being either Asgardian, injected with super soldier serum, being kidnapped as a child by the Russians and turned into a super spy, being a genius billionaire, or being
a nuclear physicist. And you're never going to be that.
Yeah.
You're never going to be that, Megan. All right? You're not smart enough.
Even if you were smart
you're
enough,
dedicated. This is me talking to my future kid. You're dedicated, but you're not smart enough. All right? You gotta be Hawkeye.
You got to be smart enough to be a nuclear physicist, and dumb enough to get caught in a nuclear explosion of your own creation. There's a very fine overlap on that Venn diagram.
The depth of field on that shot is fucking slim.
Hawkeye could make it though.
Yeah.
I think we've got enough topic.
Because
we've mentioned one thing about this episode, which is so Brian plays the cello.
So Dr. Beverly Crusher, Dr. Crusher and Captain Picard are sitting there in probably 8 forward or something. And first of all, and I thought this, and then luckily Laura brought it up first, Bev, looking incredible today.
Yeah, she looks amazing.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because she was in just the uniform with no lab coat. But anyway, so Data comes in and he's giving it, I'm here to play, but I basically I don't have a soul, so I will play competent music, but my other bandmates, they're not in for me being here, which I'm like, hold on a minute, are you trying to say that O'Brien has? No, actually, I can absolutely imagine this. That O'Brien has sat Data down in 10 forward, and he's just like, listen, mate. You can technically play all you want, but you've no fucking soul, son. You've no fucking soul. And next to him, there's just eight empty pints of Guinness. And then 10 minutes later, he's just like, I could have played for county, but it's all politics.
Like, you should have, like, he's sitting there going, look, if you learned anything from The Devil Goes Down to Georgia, you can be as technical as you want, but if you haven't got a soul, you're screwed. You're done. That's why Satan can't win. And then he's the judge. And
then you see Data just moving his eyes around, and that's because that's him reading that story, and he's like, "Oh, I understand. So I should be playing a gold fiddle." And O'Brien fucking glasses him with a Guinness glass.
How many times do you reckon O'Brien has glassed Data, knowing it will cause him no harm?
Probably a few. He probably does it every time that Guinan pours him a 1-pint pour of Guinness.
No, it's when she puts
a
shamrock in the top, despite the fact that he says he doesn't want it.
She does a 1-pint pour and she does the shamrock, and then he's just like, it's a 2-pint pour, there is a reason. And then Guinan is like, listen, I worked for Guinness back in the 90s, it's a marketing ploy, we don't really have to do it after the advent of nitrogen casks. Right, it was when it was wood, and then fucking O'Brien just really angrily just takes his full pint of Guinness and just fucking smashes it into Data's face because he knows he's not going to do anything. He's an angry drunk, is Miles O'Brien.
Yeah. No, I 100% imagine that happening.
Yeah.
Because he gets close to glassing Bashir a few times in Deep Space Nine. Right. So the plot of this episode is some aliens have said, "Oh yeah, we aliens have got a treaty with the Federation that says they own this bit of space," and they've said, "Oh look, we're going to move into this planet. It turns out there's a bunch of humans there, so you got 4 days to get rid of them." But the planet's radioactive, so they can't go down. But Data's immune to the radiation, so he has to go deal with it. And it's him trying to persuade people with interpersonal skills that he doesn't have.
And they also they can't use the transporter because the type of radiation, because it was hundreds of years ago or 130 years ago, there was a ship, the Artemis, taking. It was like a colony ship, and it was flying people out, and then it crashed on this planet, and only a third of the people survived because they were able to become immune to the radiation. But this radiation means that technology essentially doesn't really work there properly.
Yeah.
But now they could have gone quite a lazy way with that and had them. Maybe it's not so lazy. Maybe there is like a story here where it's like whatever 4 or 5 generations down the line, with no technology, do you just turn back to superstition? But no, they didn't really go with that. The people were like, oh, you are an android. We understand what androids are because we've read books, and our grandparents were like, back in my day, we used to have these things called androids.
Yeah, even though they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But they arrive at the shuttle, and I was expecting a full like, oh no, anything, and they were like, oh, it's some sort of shuttle. I think these are Federation markings.
Oh, our great grandparents were in the Federation, and then Data doesn't question it.
There's a guy. It's not addressed specifically. There's a guy I'm guessing is a bit Vulcan, because they're a group of colonists, so they wouldn't all be human to start with. But I think that black guy definitely comes across as like he's playing that a bit Vulcan.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
They've got a weird society in that when you get elected leader in the society, all of your dialogue has to be terribly ADR'd. And that's specifically only for the leader of this society. Everybody else is fine and normal.
So I looked into this. Apparently they did that to that guy because they thought he didn't sound leader-y enough.
Right,
like he didn't have the gravitas.
So it's somebody else's voice?
Yeah, it's someone else's voice.
Oh,
yeah,
right, okay, that makes sense.
It's not that actor's voice.
It's definitely off.
Yeah.
Like the minute and it's not just noticeable, it's very noticeable.
Apparently this episode had a lot of trouble behind the scenes. Last minute, first of all, O'Brien is in 4 scenes and doesn't say anything.
Which is shambles.
Bizarre. But the other thing is that this episode last minute had $200,000 cut off its budget. Oh. Now, I was very surprised by that because it made me think, wait, how much is the regular budget for a TNG episode? Because that's either a lot of money or not a whole lot of money. I'd have it, but it meant that. But they said, oh, we had to cut $200,000 off the episode, so they had to cut out a subplot between Data and that lady having a romance. Like, what? Why? Why was that? It's going to be expensive. Maybe not spend all your money on that one. Now, to be fair, that glorious looking matte painting. And I don't want to get on a tangent here. This episode looks fantastic.
Yeah. When they arrive on the planet and the shuttle is there, and there's some rocks in the background and the sky, I was like, oh no, we're doing this again. Where it's like we've just got a coloured background. And then this is a gorgeous looking. I really enjoyed this episode, to be honest. This was
like this episode. I like this episode quite a bit.
Yeah, Data gets a little girlfriend. It's very sweet.
She's got quite a sexy outfit.
Yeah, I quite liked Adrian Mackenzie, played by Eileen Seeley. I jotted that down. I thought she was an asset to the episode.
Yeah, it could have been a fun if they wanted to get rid of Wesley, they could have brought her onto the Enterprise.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was like, you could have done very similar to what they ended up doing in the Orville with Isaac and Claire, whereas just be Data doesn't have emotions, but I don't think that's a flaw. Data, I don't think Data can feel angry or feel love, but I think he can think it. Because the idea that he's got a best friend, Geordie, and people he respects and the opinions he likes. He has different social. He doesn't just treat everyone exactly the same.
Yeah, and
so he must have
fundamentally good.
Yeah.
So he must understand what the advantages of being good rather than bad. I mean, he talks about that to his brother. So he must understand.
Yeah. And I've got to say this for an episode that is entirely about Data and Data's abilities. Really good Troy episode as well.
Yeah, real good, yeah. here's a question, because I thought about this. Where is Troy in the command structure?
I actually know this because it comes up in a later episode. She is a lieutenant.
So they would need to be about 35 people knocked out before she would be in charge.
Yeah, that happens in an episode in, I think, season 4, where like O'Brien has to explain her rank to her. He's like on the bridge, and he's like, technically, Councillor Troy is in charge.
I do know that the one and only time in the series when she takes control of the bridge, the episode is literally called Disaster.
Yeah. She takes. I think she actually only takes the helm of the Enterprise once, and it's in one of the actually properly takes the helm once. It's in one of the movies, and the ship instantly crashes.
Because you can't ask a ship how it's doing.
Yeah, or maybe you can,
but
maybe nobody does, and that's the problem.
Yeah. Maybe the ship was crashing this whole time, and Troy just gave it the ability to get over that edge. The bravery, the courage. No, you're right. This is a great Troy episode.
Yeah, because she has it's that whole thing about the Sheliak who are the other race who own this space, don't count humans as like life forms, so they're gonna just turn up and wipe out the colony. And like Troy does that brilliant thing of like, oh, it's mental that aliens can communicate with each other at all. Because like, if I'm holding this, what do I mean? And she says the word the Betazoid word for cup or whatever, and says, I'm holding this. I point at it, I say this word. What does that mean? And Picard's like, cup. And she's like, no. And she's like, tea? Liquid? And he goes, well, might be brown, might be transparent, might be, we don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was talking to Laura about this because I asked her, like, what did you think that she meant? Based on her inflection, what do you think that she meant by that word? And I think she said like the liquid inside, that's what she thought it referred to. I think that word that she used, for some reason, it just immediately came to me that what she was saying was mine. Like, she was holding it, so she was telling him it was hers, mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that is like a fascinating, because like, who do we ever find out in Trek lore? I guess it would be the Vulcans. Who invented the universal translator?
I know it's not in Enterprise because they have a translator on board the ship. So I'm guessing it's invented between Enterprise and the original series. Yeah. So I don't know if we have an actual time. It might be something that happens during Enterprise. Because
Lieutenant Uhura is, like, her speciality is xenolinguistics, according to the movies. I don't know if it was in the original show. So obviously you still need someone on board who can do that.
Yeah. So so I figure that it might be that by the original series, where there's a translator, but it's not universal. It's not got the because there is an episode of Deep Space Nine where aliens whose language isn't in the universal translator arrive on the station, and there's a whole bit about keeping them talking long enough, and as they are talking, suddenly individual words start to get translated as the computer analyzes enough of their like language patterns.
Yeah.
And it's like, so that's very clever. So I think there might be just like a system where it's like, I can translate Klingon or Romulan or whatever in TOS, and then by the time you get onto TNG, it's like, no, it just knows everything.
Don't worry about it. Yeah,
because not understanding people is the least interesting part of space travel.
Yeah. Well, that was a criticism that fans had about SG-1.
Yeah.
Stargate SG-1 is, and I think it was Michael Shanks. They were like, how come you're able to understand all these people? And he was like, because if we didn't, we'd need to spend half the episode just learning their fucking language, and there's no point, just accept. But they don't even have a translator. It's just that all the aliens speak English.
Yeah, because they did have...
As it should be.
They had Daniel trying to translate for the first series in a bit, I think, and then they just realised this is boring.
Yeah,
because learning to understand someone is a very like interesting sci-fi plot you can have a lot of fun with, but not every episode.
Yeah, exactly. I really like this episode. for two reasons. Number one, it makes absolutely fantastic use of the classic 4:3 television aspect ratio, which I have become obsessed with. Laura will tell you, I have become fucking obsessed with the 4:3 aspect ratio recently, because I got a book about it, and I can't stop thinking about it. The other thing is that this is so this episode has three different points of view. There's the Shiliak, who, per their treaty with the Federation, legally have the rights to that planet. There's the people on the planet who no one knew whether they were there. That was kind of the point. The Shiliak discovered them and told the Federation about it, saying, listen, you've got 4 days to get these people to fuck. They don't know what's going on. They think that their home is being invaded. They are being taken away from their home in a very, very short period of time by people they might not necessarily trust. And then there's the Federation, who I would argue kind of has the biggest overall picture, and their point of view is that we have to get these people off because we have to maintain the treaty with the Shiliak.
And also, if we don't, the Shiliak would just murder them, and we legally don't have like a leg to stand on to be like, don't do that.
And taking like human bias out of it, I think that all three points of view are somewhat equally valid.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be another episode where I advocate for genocide, but the Shiliak just they don't consider human beings to be sentient life. So and really, who are we to tell them that that's wrong?
Yeah, I like it's one of those things as a right. Okay, I've often had this thought, which is as a vegetarian, this is going to sound really wanky, but I don't think there are a lot of arguments for eating meat that wouldn't also apply to an alien species that decided they want to eat us. Like if they go, you know, like when people go, oh well, you know, animals are stupider than us. Well, so are fucking babies. You don't eat them, right? Yeah. But you know, but I'm not saying that to like sound any way morally superior. That's just what my thinking is, and therefore I think if an alien just goes, oh, we just don't consider you to be people, then your counter argument is like you can't really have one, because humans historically have done terrible things to creatures we don't consider to be fucking people. Like we've hunted animals to extinction. Yeah. For little or no reason. Like dodos weren't tasty. We just murdered them for fun. you know the wasp that I think it's the tarantula wasp, but basically it like paralyzes a tarantula, lays its eggs in the body of the tarantula, and then when the eggs hatch, the younglings eat their way out of the still living spider. Yeah. My opinion of that wasp wouldn't change if it turned out that wasp species makes really good rap music. Like, just because the human species is capable of really beautiful things doesn't mean that we're not fucking awful. Yeah. It's very much, very, very hard if you're a human being. Like, if you met an aliens race and they were like, well, we're just going to wipe you out. And we would go, oh, we can't wipe out an entire colony of humans. That's wrong. Because what would you say if they were, well, you've done it. Yeah. And you're you. You should like you. Also, you know how much you're fucking up your only planet, and yet you're still just doing it for your own. Yeah. It's for what essentially boils down to your own amusement. Yeah. At least for the amusement of a few. Yeah. And then yeah. Do you know what? I'm pro Shiliak, mate. But then I understand like the people on the planet view of like, oh, this is where I lived. Because their view is they're going to try and fight until Data turns up with a phaser that he's like fixed to work on the planet and just like completely destroys the entire planet's water supply after like knocking out 5 people. It was like, yeah, look, it's not going to be a fight. Yeah. I did that in seconds. They've got more powerful weapons. They will decimate you from space. Yeah, was it? He says you wouldn't even see the face of the person who killed you or something. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had fire marshal training yesterday at work, and they were like, one of the things that they say is like, if a building catches fire and burns down, that building will be rebuilt and refurbished within 6-7 months, right? Whereas if you die in a fire, you can't be replaced by your family. And that's very much what Data's trying to say. Like, yeah, it's a nice colony. You've done incredible things. I love what you've done to replace. But if you all die and this gets obliterated, you've got nothing. But if you move, you can build something else new and fresh on another planet.
I really like the way that someone puts it when the leader, like his ADR thoughts start to swim in his head. He thinks to himself in a Jamaican accent, and someone puts it really nicely. The other lad, he says, there are always new challenges. I really like that. It's a really nice little soundbite. Also, it's odd that you got fire marshal training considering you work from home. Was your dog in charge of it?
Yeah, she was.
And you just and the
she
challenge
wears a
was to get
vest.
the cat out.
It's the most troublesome one.
Yeah,
the cat's not allowed outside. You see, so if I do get him out the front door, I've got to keep hold of him whilst the dog's attacking. No, I do work in the office 2 days a week for anybody wondering. But I also, can I just say something I love about Star Trek: The Next Generation, which was I'm in my notes. I'm jotting things down. And at a certain point, I realised where one of the plot strands was going, and I've written down in big letters, "Oh yes, it's a negotiation episode," which is some of the best Jean-Luc Picard you will ever get. Is when he has to negotiate with an alien race. And this whole thing is they have a contract. The Sheliak think that human language is shitty, basically. So the contract's incredibly long and incredibly complex. And it also does take about 35 minutes of the 45-minute episode for Picard to come up with the idea of maybe we should read the contract.
Well, I said this to Laura because the thing is, right, on the Enterprise D crew, they have a built-in system for when something really long needs to get read, and it's data. But data isn't there. So Picard is just putting it off because he knows as the captain he's going to be the guy that has to read that 5,000-page contract.
Yeah. Well, you can't argue. I love that Worf's next to him while he's reading it. Look at him show that Worf's like, this is the worst thing I have ever gone through in my life.
Yeah, and I wish that Picard had turned around to him and gone like, you know that I specifically ordered you not to be a part of this because I knew that you would just stand here bitching about it, right?
It's like, but you're next to him, but it's happening next to his desk.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Yeah, and there's nothing to fire at, so he's got nothing to do. He's just leaning over Picard's shoulder like, oh fucking hell, still doing this, eh? Whoa, I'm going for a fag break.
Yeah, I do love that Picard's method for stopping them is like, okay, so the Sheliak want it emptied in 4 days, so they must be sending a ship. So what we're going to do is we're going to fly out in front of their ship, and then we're just going to stay in. We're going to be in front of them. That's it. It's just like, what we're going to do if they try to go around? No, we'll just move over to the side.
Yeah,
move over a bit, and like just so they can't get past without bumping into you. Which is just like, I wish that that had been part of the episode. This is then up nose to nose.
Imagine that had been optimal strategy for defeating the Borg. Just sit in front of them so that they can't get by, and it'll annoy them so much that they'll eventually just leave.
If you are touching the Borg, right, but your engine isn't on, that's no resistance. So you've gotten around the futility clause, right? Yeah. Now you can just do what you want.
But yeah, this does have a spectacular Jean-Luc Picard negotiation tactic.
Oh yeah, it does.
Oh. Because I remember talking to... So I meet a lot of people in pubs. And when living in London, or when I did live in London, as you well know, you meet some fucking randos in pubs. Like you and depending on where you drink, you can meet like all walks of life. And I used to be quite friendly with this guy who was like he was like a business. I didn't really understand what he did. He was a money man. He was like a businessman, but he looked like a cartoon businessman. Like he was quite short, quite stout, but he had like old timey braces on, and and his shirts, like his shirt, the colours of his shirt were always really
Were you
weird.
friends with Rumpole of the Bailey?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, right. And I got real pissed with him one night, and I was just like, I'm bad at negotiating. Like, I'm really terrible at it. Like, I fold like a cheap suit. In the last couple of episodes, by the way, I have given away quite a lot of my own personal weaknesses. So if anyone is looking for my kryptonite, this is the place to go.
Why you're such a poor negotiator is that you walk into a room with an A4 sheet. Here's a list of my weaknesses. Let's begin.
Also, you will see at the top is number 1, oversharing. And I feel like I haven't, despite what I just did, I haven't shown you that is the tip of the iceberg of how this is going to go, my friend. But basically, he said the number 1 key to negotiation is say what you want and then do not speak again until they speak.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much, it's from The Wolf of Wall Street, which is like his line about you say your telephone pitch and then you stay in sight and then you are silent and the first one to talk loses.
That's basically it. I can't do that, and it's not like, it's not because I have a weird problem where it's not so much that I find silence is uncomfortable, it's that I want to talk. I want to say things because if I have to live with my thoughts simply inside of my own head, I will explode.
My phone was broken for 2 days and I had to walk the dog without my headphones on, and Emma was just like, are you going to be okay being out like alone with your own thoughts for about an hour? And I was like, I genuinely don't know if I can manage it.
I am going for a major pay cut this year to get just like a regular job, because being self-employed and not doing all that much work, humble brag, I don't really get to see people that often, and I am going crazy would be an understatement. Having had gone crazy a fucking while ago would be a more accurate way of putting that. I've gone full data.
Well, they've done an experiment, haven't they? That if you put people alone in a room hooked up to a machine that will electric shock them with a button on the table that will electric shock them, if you leave people alone for, I think it's 10 minutes, 75% of people will shock themselves just for something to do.
How do they pitch that though? They could pitch, like, is it, because I wonder, is it like they sit down and they say, here is a box, if you press the button the box will shock you, anyway we'll be back in half an hour?
I think they tell them all the setup, and then they say the experiment's going to begin when so-and-so arrives, and then they just leave them for 15 minutes to see if they... you don't want to tell... Yeah. It's
like the Ghostbusters 2, let's see what happens when we take away the puppet. I think they could set that out to me straight up. I think the psychologist could sit me down and say, look, here's the deal. We're going to leave you in here. There's nothing in here. There's nothing to do. There's no one to speak to. This box will give you an electric shock, and 75% of people in the first 10 minutes will press it. Not only would he say that to me, he'd then say, and you're going to press it. I see it in your eyes. You are 100% going to press it. I would have that button pressed within 3 minutes.
You'd have the button pressed before the door closed?
Yeah, I'd press it as soon as he said that.
I've got to look at my notes. All I've got written down is this is a very well-dressed colony. I've got down. I felt that like the way the people were dressed and everything. I've got down. It was very Star Wars.
So high-waisted trousers and shirt with braces and like tucked in boots. Yeah, I really like that look.
It's an adorably attractive look on Eileen Seeley. I am very much a fan.
I like it. I used to go to a speakeasy, which is like just a London term for a wank pub.
It's a place where you go through a fridge before you go down the stairs, and it's all done up like the 50s.
It was I
drink at them so often I can't even pretend that I don't like
the speakeasy I used to go to. It was because it was like directly downstairs from my house, and it's in like a public toilet, but one of the public toilets that's in like the middle of the street, like it's in an island. And they bought it. It had been hit by a bomb during World War II, and they hadn't renovated it. They hadn't done anything with it. So the speakeasy company who bought it, they bought it and they had to renovate it. But they discovered because it was hit during World War II, there weren't any bodies or anything down there. But there were like things, like they found a Tommy gun. So they put that like above the bar in like a glass case. It was cool as fuck. But the waitresses, their uniform, the cocktail waitresses was like high waisted trousers, like just up to just like under the rib cage, and like white shirts with like open buttons and black braces. And I was like, that is a fucking spectacular look. I think the reason that I like that look so much is because I want to dress like that, but I'm not thin enough to go for high waisted trousers. It's haunted me.
I think if you're going to do braces, you either have to be very thin or comically fat.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you can't be in between.
As an average-looking person, I had to wear braces. I was a groomsman for a friend's wedding, and that was the look they decided on. And I've never forgiven you for that, Gilly. You
don't have to.
Shit.
You don't have to wear braces I'll be wearing braces, but you don't have to because for mine. Let's just get into Mark wedding admin. Basically, is you can wear whatever you want as long as it's as long as there's like shades of white and green about it.
Okay, cool.
But I hate the fucking I hate it when I just I don't think a lot about weddings, but because it is a thing that exists, I obviously have a strong opinion on it. And I think that when you go to a wedding and all the fucking groomsmen are all wearing the same thing, I'm just like, this is the most basic bitch thing in existence. Like, just, it's so like you're trying to look expensive, and it's like, but they all look it's dumb. So you are encouraged to wear whatever makes you comfortable, but there will be a sort of theme to follow, because I think it looks interesting when everyone's wearing sort of different stuff.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool.
And it'll be broadcast in glorious 4:3 format. Aspect ratio.
When you say broadcast, you mean recorded on VHS and mailed out to people?
Yeah. So I think I told you about this before. I bought a Super 8 camera.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because it was in a charity shop, and I was like, oh, that's a Super 8 camera. I've never actually really seen one of them before. And she went, I said, much? She went, 50 quid. And I went, oh, can I justify that? Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, I'll get it. The problem is, film for it is like 50 quid for like a spool, and a spool does you for 3 minutes, which you then have to send off to get processed. But on the day, like, my videographer, I've already clued him, and I've been like, you're not going to use this a lot because obviously you only get 3 minutes, so we're going to have to go through what we want, maybe like a shot of us together on the stage, like a shot of us walking out of the building, etc. Maybe like a shot of the speeches, just like make a highlight reel. But I think that'll be in 4:3. I think Super 8 tends to be 4:3, or maybe 5:4. Yeah.
I think it's 4:3, but I'm not certain.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be wrong on the internet. Anything else about this? Oh yes. So Picard reads the contract. There's an arbitration clause, and he decides that he wants to have it arbitrated by the Grisellas, who are in their hibernation phase. So it'll be like 6 months. That's it. And then they ring back, and he does the whole pause, inspects for dust off the metal plaque that is on the thing. Yeah. It's a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they give him a week.
Proper Shakespearean. That's why you get Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. And then the episode ends with him telling Data that he's creative. And Data's like, I'm not. My violin playing technique is an exact replica of two other people's meshed together. And then then Picard has to explain, no, that's what creativity is.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, the fact that you've been able to take those two things and make a new thing out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like somebody going, what if 90210, but also X-Files...
Cops.
Is how you get Buffy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I don't have anything else. I quite like. I had a good time in this episode. was a great data episode.
Great data episode. Wesley only has one line. Geordie's got some funny lines. It's a fun episode.
Yeah, because Picard, because they can't get the transporters to work and they have to transport everyone off the planet, he calls Geordie and O'Brien, who stays silent, because he's still seething about the pint that he had at lunch. He walks in and Picard says to Geordie, because obviously the transporters can't work because of the radiation, he says, I need the transporters to work and I don't want to hear that it's impossible. And Geordie's like, okay. So Geordie just fucks off, and then he comes back in at the end and he's like, well, we can do it. I'm going to need a research team in 15 years. But we can do it. And I'm like, oh, that is a like, do you think Geordie and O'Brien were sitting there in the transporter room and Geordie was like, should I say that? Like, because it is true and it does go with his orders, but that's pretty cheeky. Like, I don't know how, like, Kirk would have appreciated that, but I don't know how Picard's going to feel if I say this.
I feel that he has to be able to have backed that up and go, no, theoretically, I've worked out what needs to be done, but none of the technology exists.
And it's a shame that money doesn't exist in the Star Trek universe, because Geordie and O'Brien could have immediately just been like, well, we're millionaires because we figured this out. Time to get this fucking job to fuck.
They've worked out a transporter that beams through this radiation that human beings can't exist in. So it's not useful tech. Oh, I know how to beam somebody into an area that will kill them. Well, we can do that already. It's called space.
Right. Well, that was nice.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope you liked it. But I don't really care if you didn't.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.